Welcome, and thank you for tuning in. Imagine starting a day like any other, only to stumble upon a discovery so profound it changes everything you thought you knew about the ground beneath your feet. Today, we unravel a story that begins with a simple construction project in the heart of the city, an unassuming start to what would become a journey into the hidden depths of history, mystery, and truth. What secrets could lie locked away for decades, maybe centuries, waiting for the right moment to be unearthed? Stay with me as we dig into a tale that will surprise, move, and linger long after the last word. Let's begin. While breaking ground on a new site in the heart of the city, a construction crew unearthed an unexpected relic buried deep beneath the surface, an ancient rusted safe, its origins a mystery. Intrigued and eager, they pried it open, expecting perhaps old coins or long-forgotten documents. However, the safe's contents were neither gold nor papers, but something so profoundly touching that it moved the hardened crew to tears. The workers knew that something like this had to be treasured. Mark was quick to gather himself and run to his supervisor. However, when he finally got his boss, his face suddenly paled. Turning to Mark, he said something in a tone that made Mark feel concerned. "We need to call the police," Mark's supervisor said, shock evident on his face. Mark felt confusion wash over his features, but complied nonetheless. Seeing his supervisor pat his pockets for a phone, he quickly grabbed his own and handed it over. He saw relief on the man's face before he dialed 911. Why had his supervisor responded that way? Why did he feel the need to call the police? And most importantly, why had they found this here in the heart of the city? Getting the construction contract had been no easy task. Every construction company had wanted it, yet Mark's company had been the one to secure it. It was a rare opportunity that Mark and his team gladly took on. They would be under the wing of Jared as their supervisor, and the team had been eager to start. Their construction site would be in the heart of the city with the opportunity to build something magnificent. Mark quickly started to understand why his boss had so desperately wanted the contract. The building they were to make would become a significant landmark for many to see. They had been working hard, digging out what had previously been there. This city had history, and they found strange things while digging out the foundations of an older building, things that could have been buried for decades, maybe even centuries. Then their excavator suddenly hit something hard. The loud sound startled the crew. Had they hit a pipe? The crew gathered around as a few started to see what the excavator had struck. Jared quickly returned to the blueprints and maps to ensure they hadn't hit something important. He feared having calculated something wrong. As the crew cleared the remaining dirt from the object, they noticed something strange. It almost looked like a box, a large metallic box. They had to see what strange thing they had found. When the excavator placed it on the ground and turned it over, they all saw the front of the box. It was a safe, old and a bit rusted, but a safe nonetheless. "How do we open it?" one of Mark's colleagues asked. Should they open it? The group seemed to be split. Should they inform someone or have a quick peek inside? As the safe broke open and the crew gathered around, a gasp was heard. The door could now be opened. When it did, shock washed over the group, followed by heartfelt tears. For this to be underneath the city's nose the whole time, and for them to be the first to see it, moved them deeply. However, as Mark looked around, he saw that his supervisor still wasn't there. Mark knew that Jared probably would know what to do with this finding. "I'll get Jared," he said to the colleague closest to him before jogging off in the opposite direction. "It was a safe, and you really got to see this." Jared seemed to frown upon hearing those words, and alarm entered his eyes. "What do you mean? Where's the safe?" he asked, putting down the papers. Mark just pointed behind him toward where the men had gathered. Jared nearly dashed toward it, needing to see what was inside. When Jared and Mark arrived, instead of seeing tears in his supervisor's eyes, Mark saw shock and alarm cloud them. Jared turned to Mark while patting his pockets. "We need to call the police." Hearing the severity in Jared's voice, Mark handed him his phone. Jared was quick to dial 911, but Mark couldn't understand why. What had Jared seen that he and the rest of the crew hadn't? The wail of sirens cut through the morning air as police vehicles converged on the construction site. Officers swiftly disembarked, cordoning off the area with yellow tape. The crew, tools in hand, stood back, their day's work abruptly halted by this unforeseen intrusion. The rusted metal box, now the center of attention, was carefully inspected by the officers. One of them, wearing gloves, gingerly lifted out items covered in dust and time, medals, old photographs, and faded letters. The crew huddled together and watched in silence, a sense of reverence growing among them. Amidst the crew's emotional stir, Jared stood apart, his expression unreadable. Mark noticed Jared's clenched jaw and the way his hands balled into fists at his sides. It was clear that the safe's contents meant something different, something more personal to Jared. The police, recognizing the potential historical value of the find, began documenting everything meticulously. They photographed the safe, its location, and each item it contained. Carefully, they placed each piece of memorabilia into evidence bags, labeling them with precision. The crew huddled together, their conversation a low murmur against the backdrop of police activity. Why is Jared acting so strange? The crew watched as the police continued their meticulous work, each member lost in their own thoughts. The arrival of historians brought a new wave of activity. They moved with an air of urgency, their eyes lighting up as they examined the safe and its contents. Together, the police and historians began piecing together the story of the safe. Each item was carefully examined, its context and significance debated. Mark and his colleagues listened, captivated by the unfolding narrative. The safe was no longer just a rusty box. It was a gateway to a past that had been silently waiting beneath their feet. Word of the discovery spread quickly, igniting the curiosity of the local community. People gathered at the edges of the police tape, craning their necks for a glimpse of the safe. The investigation into the safe's contents progressed methodically. Historians and police worked in tandem, meticulously analyzing each item. Documents were scrutinized and artifacts were carefully examined. The crew watched from a distance, their daily routines now interspersed with glimpses of the ongoing research. As the investigation continued, initial findings began to hint at a connection to a notable historical event. Driven by curiosity and determination, Mark embarked on his own investigation into the safe's history. He spent his evenings researching, diving into online archives and historical databases. Each piece of information he uncovered fueled his desire to learn more. Mark's search led him to the local library, where he delved into old texts and dusty archives. As Mark continued his research, he began to piece together potential historical connections. He mapped out events, dates, and figures, trying to find a link to the safe and its contents. Mark's investigation evolved into more than just a quest for knowledge. It became a personal journey, intertwining with his own life and interests. He found himself discussing his findings with friends and family, his enthusiasm infectious. As hours turned into days, the crew's worry for Jared intensified. Conversations often circled back to his well-being and erratic behavior prior to his disappearance. They recalled his last days on the site, his anxious glances and hushed phone calls. Speculation about Jared's connection to the safe intensified among the crew. Rumors spread like wildfire, each more elaborate than the last. With the delay in construction, tensions among the crew members began to rise. The uncertainty of the situation, compounded by Jared's absence, left a palpable unease in the air. Conversations often veered toward frustration over the halted progress and the lack of clear information. The crew, united in their work, now found themselves divided in their opinions and concerns. Everyone awaited the results with bated breath, hoping for some revelation that would make sense of the strange events. The crew especially longed for answers that might explain Jared's reaction and bring clarity to the situation. Hints and clues began to emerge from the investigation, suggesting that a major revelation was imminent. The investigation finally revealed a direct link between the safe's contents and a controversial historical event. This revelation sent ripples through the crew and the community as they realized the significance of their find. The items in the safe were not just relics, they were silent witnesses to a past that had long been buried under layers of history and hearsay. In a moment laden with emotion, Jared disclosed a long-held family secret. His ancestors had been wrongfully implicated in the historical controversy connected to the safe's contents. This revelation cast Jared's earlier reactions in a new light, explaining his shock and the urgency with which he had approached the situation. The contents of the safe provided irrefutable evidence that exonerated Jared's family. Documents and personal items, long hidden away, told a story very different from the one history had recorded. This discovery was not just a vindication for Jared's family, it was a correction of the historical record, a truth finally brought to light after years of unspoken accusation. Jared shared with the crew the profound impact the historical accusation had on his family. Generations had lived under the shadow of this injustice, and the discovery in the safe felt like a lifting of that burden. The community reacted with astonishment to the revelation about Jared's family history. The story of the safe and its contents, once a local curiosity, took on a new dimension as it intertwined with the narrative of a family wronged by history. The revelation sparked conversations and reflections among the residents as they grappled with the implications of this newfound truth. The story of the safe and its contents became a catalyst for broader conversations about history, justice, and the importance of revisiting the past with a critical eye. It was a poignant reminder of the power of truth to mend old wounds. The community began to see the construction site not just as a physical space, but as a symbol of reconciliation and the rectification of historical wrongs. With a newfound sense of purpose, construction at the site resumed. The crew, now deeply connected to the story unearthed from the safe, worked with a renewed commitment. This wasn't just another building, it was a monument to history, to justice, and to the resilience of truth. Plans were made to incorporate a tribute to the historical event at the construction site. This tribute was envisioned as a way to honor the past, educate the public, and celebrate the role the construction crew had played in bringing a hidden truth to light. The story of the construction crew, the ancient safe, and Jared's close family emphasizes the lasting importance of uncovering and acknowledging historical truths. It stood as a powerful reminder that history is not just a record of the past, but a living, breathing narrative that continues to shape our present and future.